The morning after, the city felt colder. I sat by the window with a notebook and a pen. 3 words stared back at me. Start again harder. I hadn't slept. The phone buzzed with messages I didn't read. Her name flashed once, then disappeared forever. I walked outside with no plan, just noise in my head. Every corner of the street reminded me of her laugh. I hated how memory worked, how it clung to everything. At the bus stop, I decided to change the story. Not for her, not for revenge, just to breathe again. I signed up for a journalism workshop that cost half my savings. The instructor, Mr. Grant, looked at me like he could see through excuses. He said, "If you're here, take it seriously, or don't bother showing up again." I nodded, even though I wasn't sure I belonged there. Classmates were younger, louder, confident. I stayed quiet, listening, learning, pretending I wasn't falling apart. At night, I wrote about everything I didn't say at that table. Words came out sharp, heavier than before. Mr. Grant read one of my drafts and said, "You write like someone hiding." He wasn't wrong. But I kept writing anyway. Every article was a brick. Every late night was mortar. I was building something nobody could take from me. Money ran out by week 3. I sold my old camera and skipped lunch most days. Still, I showed up to class every morning. There was a gym across the street from the college. I joined with the last cash I had. The guy at the counter looked at me and said, "Trying to bulk up or burn out?" "Both," I told him. That's where I met Logan. Big guy, loud laugh, no patience for weakness. He asked what I did for a living. "Tried to be a writer," I said. He grinned. "Then write your story stronger." We trained together sometimes. He never talked much, but he pushed me harder than I thought I could go. Every rep felt like scraping rust off my bones. At home, I taped my goals to the wall. Finish the workshop. Publish one real piece. Don't look back. The apartment was small, quiet, and cold. But the silence started to sound different now. Less empty, more like focus. I wrote about city noise, about people chasing meaning in a place that forgot their names. Mr. Grant returned one paper with a note. "Finally, you're getting closer." That line meant more than any apology could. On weekends, I took buses to random parts of town, chasing stories nobody cared about. I talked to shop owners, janitors, and tired baristas. Everyone had something worth writing down. I didn't know it yet, but each of those stories was pulling me further from the man she left. I wasn't fixed, but I was no longer broken. And for the first time in months, that felt like enough to keep going. Winter came early that year. The air bit harder, and so did life. My rent notice sat on the kitchen counter like a threat. The freelance gigs slowed to nothing. Editors stopped replying to emails. I pawned my old watch, the one my father gave me. It barely covered groceries for the week. Every night, I sat at my desk with a blinking cursor. Sometimes I wrote. Mostly I stared. The city outside moved fast, like it had no time for people who were trying. Mr. Grant handed back another assignment covered in red ink. He circled the first paragraph. "Too safe," he said. "Readers don't trust soft." I wanted to argue, but he was right. I'd been scared to write the truth. Scared of being judged again. That fear had cost me more than pride ever did. At the gym, Logan caught me zoning out between sets. He said, "You still thinking about her?" I shook my head. "Then stop lifting like you miss her." He loaded more weight. "Prove you're someone she wouldn't recognize." That stuck with me for days. Every rep felt personal. Every ache felt earned. I started sleeping less, writing more. Coffee and stubbornness became my routine. The apartment heater broke, so I wore my jacket indoors. Still, I showed up for class. Mr. Grant began to notice. He stopped criticizing every line and started asking why I chose my subjects. Because they're real, I said. He nodded. Then keep chasing real. That night, I walked home under flickering streetlights. The city smelled like rain and concrete. A homeless man was selling old magazines near the bus stop. I bought one with my last $2. Inside was a story about failure that sounded too much like mine. But the ending was different. The writer didn't quit. He rebuilt. I tore out that page and pinned it to my wall. A reminder that rock bottom wasn't permanent. 2 weeks later, I turned in a story about a dying bookstore. Mr. Grant handed it back with only one note. Better. That single word hit harder than any praise I'd had before. At the gym, Logan noticed too. You're getting stronger, he said. Not just here, and he tapped his chest. I didn't respond, just nodded. Because he was right. I could feel it. The same city that once felt like a weight now felt like a challenge. I ran every morning before sunrise. I wrote until my hands cramped. The walls of my apartment filled with drafts, rejection emails, and quotes I wanted to believe. It still hurt sometimes. But the pain had a purpose now. It wasn't about her anymore. It was about proving that I could rebuild from ashes and make something worth reading. Worth living for. And I wasn't done yet. Spring came with a little warmth and a little luck. My article about the bookstore got published in a small city paper. It wasn't front page, but it was mine. Seeing my name in print felt like breathing again. Mr. Grant smiled when I told him. Told you facts first, feelings second, he said. I nodded. For the first time, I believed him. The pay was small, barely covered bus fare, but it meant something bigger. It meant someone finally read my words. That night, I celebrated with instant noodles and silence. Progress didn't need applause. It just needed proof. A week later, Logan spotted me at the gym with a grin. Heard you got printed, he said. Guess you're more than a journalist on paper now. He laughed at his own joke. I didn't. I was too focused on the next step. I spent nights rewriting old drafts, tightening every word. Mr. Grant kept pushing. He gave us an assignment about local issues. I picked the city park redevelopment project. Nobody cared about it, but I did. I interviewed residents, workers, even a city official who gave me half-truths. I wrote it all down. The story came out raw, stripped and real. When Mr. Grant returned it, he said, "Now that's journalism." He told me to send it to a bigger paper. I hesitated. He said, "If you wait to be ready, you'll wait forever." So I sent it. 2 days later, an editor from the Herald replied. They wanted to buy it. Double the pay. I stared at the email for a full minute before believing it was real. When the article went live, people actually commented. Readers debated the issue. My name was in that conversation. For the first time, my words made noise. At the gym that afternoon, Logan nodded when I told him. Good, he said. Now lift heavier. So I did. Every weight, every word, every late night felt connected now. A few days later, I was carrying groceries home when I saw her. Chloe, standing outside a cafe, laughing too loudly with her friends. She spotted me, and her smile froze. She looked me over, eyes pausing at the grocery bags. Still on the bus, huh? She said. I shrugged, still working. She smirked. Some things never change. Some do, I said, then walked away. Her laugh followed me down the street, but it didn't sting this time. It sounded small. The next morning, I woke up early and started another story. Not about her, not about pain, about movement, about progress. Mr. Grant called it my cleanest work yet. Logan said I was finally lifting like I meant it. I didn't celebrate this time. I just kept working. Because the silence that once felt empty now felt earned. And for the first time since that night, I wasn't surviving anymore. I was becoming. The months that followed moved fast. The Herald kept buying my pieces, one after another. Each one sharper, louder, more confident than the last. Mr. Grant said I was finally writing like someone with something to say. I started getting emails from editors I didn't know. Small offers, small checks, but still progress. Logan pushed me harder at the gym. He said, strong body, sharp mind. Don't let either go soft. So I didn't. Sleep was short, meals were cheap, work was constant. I wasn't rich, but I wasn't lost anymore. Then one night, after a workshop, I met Harper. She worked for a nonprofit downtown, organizing community events. She recognized my name from an article about housing protests. "You made the city council look like fools," she said with a grin. I laughed for the first time in months. She offered me a small writing job, event coverage and donor letters. It didn't pay much, but it paid steady. And it felt like a step toward something real. Harper moved through every room like she belonged there. I tried to learn from that. Confidence was a language I was still learning to speak. When I turned in my first piece for her organization, she said, "Clean work, honest tone, keep that." It wasn't flattery, it was belief. That felt new. Mr. Grant noticed the change. "You're not chasing approval anymore," he said. "You're chasing truth, that's good." I nodded. He gave me a list of regional magazine editors and told me to pitch them. "Stop thinking small," he said. "You've already earned the right to aim higher." That night, I wrote 5 pitches. 4 got ignored. 1 got accepted. The rate was triple what I usually made. The story was about tenants fighting eviction in old apartment blocks. I spent days walking through those neighborhoods, listening, writing. When the magazine ran it, my phone buzzed nonstop. People shared it, readers argued. My byline was everywhere. It felt like breathing clean air after years underground. Logan saw the article taped to the gym wall. He smirked. "Guess I was right, you're harder to ignore now." I smiled back. Not because I needed validation, but because it finally felt deserved. Harper invited me to more events. She introduced me to people who actually read my work. A woman from a local arts foundation handed me her card. They needed a writer for their newsletters. I said yes before she finished the sentence. Suddenly, my inbox wasn't empty anymore. Deadlines stacked up like proof of life. Mr. Grant said, "This is momentum, don't waste it." I didn't plan to. For the first time, rent was paid early. The fridge wasn't empty. The silence in my apartment didn't sound lonely anymore. It sounded earned. And as the city lights blurred outside my window, I realized something simple. I hadn't escaped my past. I'd rewritten it. The success came quietly at first. Checks cleared, editors called back. My name started showing up in places that once ignored me. Harper's projects turned into steady contracts. The Herald offered me a regular column. Mr. Grant said, "You're finally walking like someone who knows where he's going." I wasn't sure what that meant, but it felt true. Even Logan noticed the change. He said, "You lift heavier when your life stops dragging you down." I laughed. Maybe he was right. One evening, I ran into Ryan at a coffee shop. The same friend who laughed that night. He looked uncomfortable, like guilt still sat on his tongue. "Man, you've been doing good," he said. I just nodded and left before the silence turned ugly. A few days later, I heard from someone else. Chloe. Her name popped up on my phone like a ghost I didn't invite. She wrote, "Can we talk, just 5 minutes?" I didn't answer. But she didn't stop. 2 days later, she showed up outside my apartment. The same voice that once humiliated me now trembled. "I messed up, Ethan," she said. "I thought I wanted excitement. I just ruined something real." I stood there quiet. She looked thinner, tired, eyes swollen from crying or regret. "I see what you've become," she whispered. You did everything I said you couldn't. I glanced at my watch. Time up, I said. Her lips parted like she wanted to beg, but no words came. When I walked past her, she didn't follow. The hallway echoed with silence. Later that night, I went to the gym. Logan asked, "Bad day?" "No," I said. "Just unfinished business finally ending." He nodded and said nothing else. That weekend, I moved into a new apartment. Bigger, brighter, with no memories hiding in the walls. Mr. Grant stopped by the next week after hearing about my column. He handed me my old assignments, marked in red ink. "Keep these," he said. "Proof that you learned how to bleed on paper." We sat quietly for a while. He told me, "Most people quit before they see what pain can build. You didn't." That meant more than any paycheck. Harper texted me that night, asking if I could attend another event. A charity dinner, full of donors and business owners. I went, not as a freelancer looking for work, but as someone people wanted to meet. Across the room, a photographer asked for my name. When I said it, she smiled. "Oh, you're that writer." Those words stayed with me. Not because they sounded grand, but because they sounded earned. Outside, the air felt lighter. Chloe's shadow no longer followed me. For the first time in years, I wasn't running from what happened. I was walking toward everything I'd built. And the city that once broke me finally felt like home. 6 months later, everything felt different. My name appeared in 3 publications. Deadlines filled my calendar instead of worries. The Herald doubled my column rate after one viral piece. Harper's nonprofit offered a yearly contract. Even the business magazine asked for monthly profiles. Mr. Grant said, "You've built what people respect, consistency." I smiled. He was the first to see it coming. Logan pushed me harder than ever at the gym. Strong mind, strong lift. He'd say between sets. The weights felt lighter, not because I was stronger, but because I was certain. One morning, an email arrived from a journalism conference. They wanted me to speak on a panel about local reporting. For a moment, I just stared at the screen. A year ago, I was nobody. Now, people wanted to hear how I did it. At the event, the room was full. Reporters, editors, students, faces looking for direction. I told them the truth. Start where you are. Don't wait for permission. Write like someone's listening, even if no one is yet. They clapped. I didn't expect applause. I just wanted to mean it. When the panel ended, I saw her. Chloe. Standing near the door, wearing a plain coat and a look I didn't recognize. She waited until the others left. "I read your column," she said softly. "You've changed." I nodded. I wanted to say I'm sorry. "It's fine," I said. She hesitated. "Can we get coffee sometime?" "I'm busy," I answered. She smiled sadly, nodded and left. No drama, no scene, just an ending that came too late. That night, Harper texted, "Your talk was powerful, proud of you." I thanked her and went for a run through quiet streets. The air was cool, clean, familiar. For the first time, I didn't feel like I was chasing something. I was living it. The next week, the Herald promoted my column to the front page. Logan showed up with a grin and said, "Told you, nobody laughs at you now." I laughed too, but not for revenge. For peace. Mr. Grant retired soon after, leaving me one last note. The noise fades, the work lasts, keep going. I pinned it above my desk. The walls around me weren't empty anymore. They were covered with proof, articles, photos, names, and memories. I thought of that night in the bar, the laughter, the humiliation, and how it led me here. Pain had turned into purpose. Silence had become my loudest answer. At the next conference, I spoke again. When someone asked how to start, I said, "Don't wait for perfect, just begin." And as the lights dimmed, I realized something simple. I didn't need to be the man she wanted. I had become the man I was meant to be. The night after the conference, I walked home alone. City lights flickered across glass and rain. Every step echoed softer than before. The noise that once drowned me had gone quiet. I wasn't running anymore. I wasn't proving anything to anyone. The past didn't hurt now, it just existed. Chloe was a memory, not a wound. Ryan, Logan, Harper, Mr. Grant, all part of the story that built me. I opened my apartment door and saw the note pinned to my wall. The noise fades, the work lasts. Mr. Grant was right. The world had stopped laughing. Not because I shouted louder, but because I never stopped moving. Success didn't feel like fireworks. It felt like peace, earned one word at a time. I sat at my desk, opened a blank page, and smiled. No anger, no regret, just space to begin again. For the first time, the silence felt like home. And I knew this was the real ending. Not revenge, not applause. Just freedom,